Right, so after much anticipation, the new Mac Mini is official and it's tiny, guys. Look at this thing, it's 5 by 5 inches. That is so much smaller than the outgoing version, and it's kind of crazy to realize how much wasted space there used to be with the older model. But yeah, the new design is a radical change, and the leaks were right, it is about the same size as an Apple TV. Now, apart from the new design, there are some other changes to note. Number one, we have new chipsets. So the base model has M4, which has a 10-core CPU and a 10-core GPU, and also 16 gigs of RAM as standards. That's awesome news because, spoiler alert, the price is exactly the same. So yes, we have a new design, we have 16 gigs of RAM, all for the same $599 price tag, which is pretty insane and unheard of for Apple considering they usually increase the price with a redesign. And also remember, if you're in education, you can get this for less, and so $499 for this is a steal. Now obviously alongside the regular M4 we have the M4 Pro chipset. This offers a 14-core CPU, 20 GPU cores, and 24 gigs of RAM as standard, though you can upgrade this to 36 gigs, and with the M4 that can be upgraded to 32 gigs. You also get a max of 2 terabytes of storage with the regular M4 and 8 terabytes with the M4 Pro. And by the way, the M4 Pro I believe has actually gone up in price slightly. It's $1399 compared to $1299, which I believe was the price of the M2 Pro, but that's not too bad, especially when the base M4 is exactly the same price, which I still can't believe. You know what else would be awesome, guys? Subscribing to this channel, of course. I would greatly appreciate it, and we'll bring you the latest about Apple right to your subscription box, so please consider it. The button is below. Join the saranbyte gang now. Also, on top of all this, and despite the design being smaller, Apple's actually given us more ports. So with the base M4, you get 3 Thunderbolt 4 ports on the back, and 2 USB-C ports on the front. HDMI and Gigabit Ethernet's also still there, and then with the M4 Pro, you get 3 Thunderbolt 5 ports on the back. So yeah, honestly, Apple's kinda nailed this refresh. I'm very happy with this. Obviously, Apple also goes on about Apple Intelligence, for those who care about that. Also, this will be the first carbon neutral Mac Apple releases, so if you care about the environment, that's another plus. And overall, guys, I think the base model is going to be terrific value because let me remind you that comes with 16 gigs of RAM as standards, and so I'm going to be recommending many to get that machine. It's a no-brainer purchase. Also, the regular Mac Mini supports 2 6K displays or 1 5K display, and the M4 Pro can support 3 6K displays at 60 Hz. So you're getting the best display support with these machines. So that's everything, guys, but you might be wondering, where are the MacBook Pros? Well, of course, we know there's going to be 3 announcements this week. We have the iMac, we have the Mac Mini, and so tomorrow is going to be the MacBook Pros. And to be honest, tomorrow is not going to be a massive surprise because, spoiler alert, these MacBooks have already kind of leaked extensively, and there were Russian dudes unboxing them a few weeks ago. So let's delve into those details. And also, by the way, my hairstyle, beard, and clothes may change, but gloss over that. Anyways, let's move on to the main hardware changes with the M4 MacBook Pro, and for the most part, it's a chipset refresh. This is the base model that's being covered in this unboxing, and of course, that has the brand new M4 chipset. The packaging reveals the base model now has a 10-core CPU compared to 8 CPU cores with the current M3. They also ran a Geekbench test to give us a better idea of the performance upgrades, and while M4 achieved a single-core score of 3864 and a multi-core score of 15288, and the GPU Metal score was 57603. Now those are many big numbers, but basically what you need to know is that this is a whopping 4% faster than the M4 iPad Pro, but what's actually more exciting is that the base M4 is now on par with the M3 Pro and M2 Max, which is pretty crazy to think about. The next change is even more exciting because the packaging also reveals 16 gigs of RAM could be the minimum for all Macs from here on, and thank you Apple gods for finally giving us this. They're listening at last because we've been begging for them to get rid of 8 gig Macs for years, and this alone would be a big reason to get the M4. In fact, I would say single-handedly the main thing that disappointed me with last year's M3 MacBook Pro was the fact it came with 8 gigs of standards. Otherwise, it was a terrific machine, and so I'm happy to see Timothy's listening to us and has been gracious enough to give us 16 gigs of RAM. Thank you very much. Now, of course, I'm aware it's not clear this is the base model, but usually the models produced in bulk before release are the base models. Those are the ones everyone buys, and so I think 16 gigs will be the new minimum. Storage has not changed, it stays at 512, but that's enough for most consumers. And do remember, you do have the choice to use external storage, whereas RAM is not upgradable, so it's important they upgrade that over the storage. We also see 3 Thunderbolt 4 ports on the M4 model, which is another new upgrade because do remember the base M3 had 1 less port, so we do now have feature parity across the range in this aspect. What's also coming from more expensive models are new color options. and actually I just mean one new color because Space Black is now here on the base M4. With the M3 models, you were forced to go for the M3 Pro if you wanted this, or else you had to settle for the horrible space gray finish. So I'm glad it's finally coming down to the base model. So those are the 2024 M4 Macs, but of course, the M4 rollout won't be done this year. So the next model up for release is the MacBook Air. This apparently should stick to a spring release, similar to the M3 model this year. Now, much like the MacBook Pro, don't expect this to get any other changes apart from a new chipset. Apple seems to be pretty happy with the current form factors, so I don't see them changing the design anytime soon. And if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Finally, around mid-2025, we should see the M4 Mac Studio, which makes sense considering the M2 model launched at WWDC, and the Mac Pro then releases in the second half of 2024 according to Gurman, which I'm gonna go against, guys. Yes, I should not argue with the tipster god himself, but personally, I see Apple sticking to the WWDC release schedule, and by the time the second half of 2025 begins, I'm sure there's going to be new M5 machines, so they need to be done with the M4 rollout by the summer in my opinion. Now, I do wonder if we're going to get a new design with the M4 Mac Pro. I really hope they do, but because it's a low volume product, you can argue that Apple doesn't want to spend the R&D developing a new shell for the 5 people buying this. Anyways, thank you for watching, guys. Make sure to like and subscribe for the latest Apple news and rumors. And on that note, I'll see you guys in the next one. Right, so M4 Mac week has begun, people, and we have our first Mac, which is the M4 iMac. There are some interesting changes. It's actually a bigger update than we were expecting, and so let's delve into everything. So obviously at the center of this is the brand new M4 chipset, which is not really brand new because we saw it a few months ago with the iPad Pros, but now it's in a Mac, which is very cool. And obviously this is a decent upgrade over the M3. Here are the benchmarks, here are the specs. It's this amount better than the M3, so yay. But jokes aside, actually is a decent upgrade over the M3 because it's based on the TSMC N3E process, which is much more efficient. But that's not the big news of the day, guys. The groundbreaking change has to be 16 gigs of RAM as standard. I never thought this day would come, but Timothy has finally been gracious and has given us 16 gigs of RAM for the same price as standards. I can't believe it, guys. I'm about to faint in excitement because obviously this makes this new iMac much better value than the outgoing M3 version. You can now comfortably get the base model and not sell your kidney to upgrade the RAM, so that is very awesome news. You know what else is just as awesome as 16 gigs of RAM? Subscribing to this channel, of course.